All right, get ready, because today we're diving into something truly mind-bending, the alchemy of time.
Ooh, that sounds intense.
It is, and to guide us through this, we have a roundtable discussion with Dan Winter and Jay Widener.
Two experts in the fields of science, spirituality, and ancient mysteries.
Exactly, and they're going to help us understand how alchemy is about so much more than turning lead into gold.
Not just that.
It's about manipulating the very fabric of reality itself, including time.
Wow. So where do we even begin?
Well, they introduced this idea of the alchemy of time.
Okay, and what does that even mean?
Dan Winter connects it to this intriguing concept of implosion of spin periodicities.
Implosion of what now?
Spin periodicities, think of it like a whirlpool. Everything spiraling inward towards a central point.
Okay, I can picture that.
Now imagine those spinning energies representing different events or moments in time.
Interesting.
So Dan Winter suggests that by understanding the rhythms and patterns of these spinning energies, we might be able to align ourselves with specific moments for maximum impact.
So it's like catching a wave at just the right moment to ride it perfectly.
You got it. And they actually give the example of cold fusion.
Cold fusion.
They suggest it might only be achievable at certain times and in certain places, when these energy patterns align in a specific way.
That's a pretty radical departure from our usual linear view of time. Makes you wonder if we've been looking at it all wrong.
Right. And that leads us to the next big question. What even is time?
Yeah, what is it?
Well, Dan Winter defines it as a measure of spin rate relative to a central focal point.
Spin rate.
And he even connects this to the concept of mass, suggesting that mass is essentially the inertia of these rotating charge stores.
So if time is just a measure of spin, could it be possible to influence time by manipulating these spinning energies?
That's what they're proposing. It definitely challenges our conventional thinking.
It sounds like we're stepping into the realm of science fiction here.
A bit, yeah. But then Jay Widener brings in the concept of immortality.
Immortality.
He emphasizes that it's not about preserving our physical bodies forever.
So what is it about?
It's about guiding our consciousness, our memories and experiences through death and beyond.
Through death. Now that raises a lot of questions. How do you even guide your consciousness through death?
Well, Dan Winter offers a possible framework for understanding this with his explanation of the planes of Sharon.
Planes of Sharon.
He suggests that the electron shells of monoatomic gold might map onto the concept of heaven.
Wait, hold on. Monoatomic gold.
Yeah, it's basically gold in a different state. The atoms are not bound together in a typical metallic structure.
Okay, so why are these electron shells so important?
Well, Dan Winter believes that these electron configurations might somehow correspond to different levels of reality or states of being.
And he calls these the planes of Sharon.
Exactly.
So he's suggesting that heaven, in this context, isn't a physical place, but a state of being, like characterized by a specific energy configuration.
You got it. It's a fascinating way to bridge scientific concepts with spiritual ideas.
It is.
And speaking of bridging concepts, they discuss the concept of mana, or the spice.
The spice, like from Dune.
Yeah, and they actually explore the possibility of this substance existing in reality.
Wow, that's wild.
They suggest that the spice could be a precipitate of monoatomic gold or even a byproduct of advanced beings' metabolism.
So something we usually think of as science fiction could actually have roots in real science.
Exactly. Okay, my mind is officially blown. We've gone from manipulating time to the afterlife to a substance that could enhance consciousness.
This is a lot to take in already.
It is, and we're just getting started. Next, we'll dive into the mysterious Philosopher's Stone.
Oh, well, the Philosopher's Stone. That sounds intriguing.
It is, and Dan and Jay describe it as a gold vapor nanobubble array trapped in molten glass.
That sounds incredibly complex. What's so special about it?
They suggest it might hold the key to manipulating energy for transformative effects, including potential longevity.
So it's not just about turning lead into gold.
Not just that, it's more like a tool for manipulating energy and potentially influencing the aging process.
Wow.
And to bring this concept down to earth, they share a story about an ancient fire ritual called Agnihotra, performed at specific times.
Agnihotra?
Yeah, and Dan Winter describes experiencing a powerful energy surge during this ritual. He suggests it might be tapping into a larger unseen energy grid.
So this ritual could be a way to connect with a hidden source of energy.
That's what he experienced. It's like these ancient practices, when performed correctly, can act like antennas, tuning us into a frequency of energy that we're usually unaware of.
Okay, we've got alchemy, immortality, the spice, the philosopher's stone, and now energy grids. This is quite a journey.
It is, and it's just the beginning. There's so much more to explore in this conversation about the alchemy of time.
I'm ready for more.
Great. Let's take a short break, and then we'll be back to dive even deeper. We've covered some pretty wild concepts so far, like immortality, the spice, the philosopher's stone.
It is pretty mind-blowing stuff.
But it also feels very theoretical, Like, how did these ideas actually apply to our daily lives?
That's a great question. And it's where things start to get really interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
Remember Dan Winter's description of the plains of Sharon?
Right, the electron shells of monoatomic gold mapping onto the concept of heaven.
Exactly. He suggests that heaven is essentially a state of optimal energy flow.
Okay, I'm following. But how do we achieve that optimal energy flow? Like, practically speaking, is it about consuming monoatomic gold?
That's one possibility they discuss. But Dan Winter really emphasizes understanding the geometry of energy flow. He believes that certain shapes and patterns, well, they can either help or hinder this flow.
So it's not just the material, but how it's structured.
Exactly.
Like, what kind of shapes are we talking about here?
This is where the concept of sacred geometry comes in.
Okay.
He talks about how certain shapes, like the tetrahedron and the cube, can create a kind of energetic vortex.
A vortex.
Yeah, it draws energy inward, creating that state of implosion. Remember we talked about that whirlpool?
Right.
It's similar to that.
So if we surround ourselves with these shapes, it can impact our energy.
That's the idea. He believes these shapes act like lenses, focusing and amplifying energy. And this applies not just to physical objects, but also to the energy fields within and around our bodies.
You're talking about our auras.
Exactly.
Because they mentioned a coherent aura being important for things like lucid dreaming and a positive death experience.
Right. He believes that cultivating a strong, coherent aura is directly tied to these principles of sacred geometry.
So by understanding the geometry of energy flow, we can strengthen our auras, which could then affect our experiences of time and reality.
That's what they're suggesting.
This is starting to make sense. But they also talked about Gaia, the Earth, as having its own energy field, right?
Yes, they were both involved with Gaia TV, which explored those concepts.
So how does Gaia's energy field fit into all of this?
Well, they suggest there are specific locations on Earth with particularly strong energy flows.
Like where?
Places like the Michael Line and where Lee lines intersect. These are often sites of sacred spaces, ancient temples, places where people report unusual experiences.
It's almost like the Earth itself has these energy hotspots.
Yeah, like acupuncture points that can influence the flow of energy.
I like that analogy. So they suggest that by understanding these energy flows, we can tap into a greater power.
A kind of universal energy grid, if you will. This brings us back to the Agnihotra fire ritual.
Where Dan Winter experienced that energy surge.
Exactly. It was at a specific time and location.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these pieces fit together. Our auras, Gaia's energy grid, these power points. But how does it all relate back to the alchemy of time?
This is where things get even more mind-bending. Dan Winter suggests that time isn't just linear, but fractal. Yeah, it's like a spiral, constantly repeating patterns at different scales.
Like those infinitely repeating patterns in nature.
Exactly. And he believes these fractal patterns in time create moments of heightened energy.
Moments where we can potentially access a deeper level of reality.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And he suggests that by understanding these fractal patterns, we can align ourselves with these moments.
To experience the alchemy of time.
Exactly. Amplifying our ability to manifest our intentions.
Wow, this is powerful stuff. But how do we actually do that? Find and align ourselves with these windows in time?
That's the million-dollar question. It requires a deep understanding of ourselves, the Earth's energy grid, and these fractal patterns in time. It's a journey.
A journey of self-discovery and exploration.
You got it.
It sounds like we need a whole new way of perceiving time and reality to truly grasp these concepts.
You're absolutely right. That's what these experts are encouraging us to do, to expand our awareness, question our assumptions, and explore our potential.
This deep dive is definitely an adventure. We've gone from manipulating time to navigating death to understanding the Earth's energy grid. What else can we learn from these experts about the alchemy of time? So we've covered some truly mind-expanding ideas in this deep dive, like manipulating energy with the philosopher's stone and strengthening our auras with sacred geometry.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
But it's all pretty fascinating. Are there any real-world examples of these concepts in action, though?
Oh, absolutely. There are actually quite a few examples woven throughout history and spiritual traditions. Like Jay Widener brings up the Ark of the Covenant.
The Ark of the Covenant, the legendary artifact.
The one said to possess immense power, yeah. And you might recall the stories of the Levites levitating while carrying it.
Right. So is that hinting at a connection to manipulating gravity and energy?
That's exactly what they propose.
Wow.
And Dan Winter adds another layer to this by suggesting that the Ark may have only worked, like at its full potential, in specific locations.
Okay, interesting. Like those places on the Michael Line with the heightened energy flows we discussed.
Precisely. So the Ark's power wasn't just about the object itself, but its placement within the Earth's energy grid.
So it's like finding the right spot to tune into a specific frequency.
Exactly. And this idea resonates with Bruce Cathy's research, which suggests that nuclear critical mass, the point at which a nuclear chain reaction occurs, is actually reduced at these magnetic line cross points.
Wait, you're saying the Earth's energy grid can influence nuclear reactions? That's huge.
It really illustrates how these subtle energies can have a very real impact on the physical world. And it ties back to the concept of the philosopher's stone.
Okay, how so?
Well, Dan Winter describes the philosopher's stone as like a super efficient capacitor, able to store and direct vast amounts of energy.
So the Ark of the Covenant, the Philosopher's Stone, perhaps these ancient artifacts were using this universal energy grid to achieve these extraordinary effects.
That's what they're suggesting.
And this understanding wasn't just limited to ancient cultures, right? They mentioned the Templars.
The medieval order known for their esoteric knowledge, yes.
Right. Jay Widener even suggests that the Templars actually discovered the location of the Ark of the Covenant. But how does all of this relate back to the alchemy of time?
Well, remember Dan Winter's concept of fractal time, those repeating patterns at different scales?
Yeah.
Well, they suggest that certain ancient rituals, like the Agnihotra fire ceremony, were designed to align with these fractal patterns.
To create moments of heightened energy.
Exactly, and to access other realms.
Could it be that those rituals were like time travel devices, allowing people to step outside of linear time?
It's a mind-boggling concept, isn't it?
It really is.
And Jay Widener adds another layer, suggesting that certain plants might have been used to induce these altered states of consciousness, facilitating these journeys through time and reality.
So we're talking about sacred geometry, specific locations, precise timing, and even plant medicine to unlock these hidden potentials.
Yeah, it's a multifaceted approach to manipulating energy, consciousness, and even the very fabric of reality itself. And they suggest that this knowledge, it wasn't just for a select few, but was once widely understood and practiced.
It sounds like a lost chapter from humanity's history, a forgotten relationship with time and the cosmos. It makes you wonder what happened to this knowledge and if we can rediscover it, reclaim this power.
It really does. And that's a question worth pondering as we wrap up our deep dive into the alchemy of time.
This has been an incredible journey. We started with this concept of the alchemy of time and ended up exploring ancient artifacts, secret societies, energy grids, and the potential to transcend our perceived limitations. It's truly awe-inspiring.
And remember, this is just the beginning. There's so much more to explore in the works of Dan Winter, Jay Widener, and countless others who are really pushing the boundaries of our understanding.
So if time is truly a malleable force, what potential do we have to shape our own destinies? Can we even transcend the limitations of our physical existence? That's something for all of you out there to think about as we wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking. You never know what you might discover.